trying to wheelie in first gear. It got the bouncing effect where it just kept coming up. Oh, it's a good thing wheelie control's on right now, boys. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got this ZH2, the first time I've ever ridden one of these bikes. Super excited. Aaron was nice enough to let me take his bike out and test it out. From what I understand, performance-wise, this bike is pretty much stock. It's got a couple add-ons like heated grips and the ram mount, stuff like that. But performance-wise, 100% stock. So it's a little different than my 300 horsepower Ninja H2. I wanted to see what it's like compared to the Aprilia Tuono, the MT10, the KTM, Super Duke. I've owned all of those bikes. I currently own the Tuono factory. So I've got a good bit of naked bike riding under my belt, if you would, to really give you guys a comparison to let you know how it stacks up. So let's get out there and get on it and see what it feels like. It's so weird. This feels like so upright. Definitely has the power there. It's weird being on an H2 and I'm not leaned over. I'm so far up, I'm high off the ground. I'm not, like, this is not even as leaned over as my Aprilia. And it's just got gobs of torque, like 5th gear, 60 miles an hour. It just lurches forward. All right, guys, initial first reactions just of how this bike feels. It's very upright. Definitely a little touchy on the throttle, but nothing too terrible. If you're used to H2s, you know that you're gonna have a little bit more touchy of a throttle. Loads of low-end grunt. Wide bike though, definitely wide, especially compared to the Tuono, but that's to be expected. Very quiet with the stock exhaust. So gearing is definitely pretty short, but I mean, all right, second gear hit, let's see what she does. She's got some oomph. She's got some oomph. I'm surprised at how much power this bike has. It's definitely a lot faster than the Tuono. I mean, it's got just power everywhere. It's such a fun naked bike. I mean, it's a good road bike. I don't know if it's going to be as comfortable in the corners being a bigger bike, but I can tell you one thing. It needs an exhaust real bad. Just up in the tire RPMs, this thing's starting to lift third gear. Third gear power wheelies. It kind of gives me the similar feeling to the KTM Super Duke, where it's almost like you're riding a violently fast scooter. Not in a bad way, it's just the seating position. Second gear, third gear power wheelies. Oh boy! Oh my gosh! It's got loads of power. It's got loads of power for a naked bike. This is way faster than any naked bike I've ridden. Like, even the Super Duke is a savage bike, but it's just the way these H2s make power. On paper, yeah, they look like they make a good bit of power, maybe a little bit more, but the supercharger, it just puts it down. Guys, I don't have a lot of time to get familiar with this bike. Aaron was nice enough to let me ride it, and he has to be at work in about an hour or two, so I'm gonna just ride it around and get my initial impressions of the bike for you guys. Being an H2 owner myself, I really wanted to see what the naked version of this bike felt like. So the Tft display on this thing is very bright, very easy to read. I'm not sure if I like the Tft better than the regular analog tack. I kind of like the needle sweeping. It's a little bit easier for me to see for shifting purposes. I'm not hating on the dash at all. It's very nice. Instant fuel mileage of 49.7. I will tell you, I will never see that on my H2. 857 miles. So I'm guessing the reason this thing's blinking at me at like 6,000 RPMs is the shift light's still set at the factory location. Now, oddly enough, the cheapest H2 in the H2 lineup, the ZH2, is the only one with a freaking fuel gauge. I'm sure the SX has one too, but the top tier H2 doesn't. That's crazy. Guys, in terms of comfort, this has got to be the most comfortable naked bike I've ridden so far. You're pretty much upright, maybe a little bend. Pegs are really low, a lot lower than the Tuono. And he's got the comfort gel seat on it. I have a feeling you could ride this bike all day long and just be fine. It's nothing like a Super Sport or even close to it. Like the Tuono is basically a Super Sport with upright bars and the pegs a little bit lower. This bike's not like that. This is a complete ground up redesign from the H2. Let's see what she's got in second. I'll wait till after the hill crest and hammer time. Oh my. It's got wheelie control on. It's definitely keeping me down, but this thing just straight power wheelies third gear stock, no problem. Now, being that it's not my bike, I'm not going to be out here doing huge wheelies like I would be on the Tuono, but this thing just has so much power stock. I can't imagine. This thing's just going to be silly with a tune and a freaking pipe. I mean, adding like another 50 horsepower to this, you're going to be like doing 150 on a naked bike, trying to hold on, and then it's just going to power wheelie on you. This thing might be more of a death machine than the H2. Oh boy, for a naked bike, this thing is silly. If this didn't have traction control on it and wheelie control, this thing would be trying to come up everywhere. Hammer time, boys. Hillcrest power wheelies in fourth. Like nothing, like power wheelie. Guys, if you want one motorcycle that is fast, comfortable, and can do everything decently well, this is probably your bike. Because of the short amount of time we have today, he's got to go to work. I don't know how many twisties we're actually going to be able to hit. So, sorry about that, guys. I don't know if I'm going to be able to test the handling very well on this bike. I can tell you without a doubt, it's got power. I definitely feel like I'm up pretty high on this bike. Even though you sit down in the bike a little bit, it's a tall motorcycle. I don't know these roads at all, guys, so I'm not going to be hitting it hard. He's taking us around, so I'm not sure what I'm getting into, and these conditions are not the best back here. I mean, it leans in pretty good. Traction control does a really good job, or wheelie control rather, does a really good job at keeping that wheel just maybe 8 inches to a foot off the ground, and that's all it lets you have. Looks like some gravel up here, yep. So I'm not hitting it through these too hard, just because there is a lot of gravel back here. It's not my bike. I don't want to put this thing down. This bike does have the blow-off valve chirps like my H2. It's just they're not near as profound, being that it's running a lot less boost. If you're looking for a road bike, this is probably the best of all the nakeds for a road bike. If you're looking to do some track days and stuff, I would look more towards like the Tuono or something like that. Road manners, this bike's pretty dang good. So the MT10 is probably the best wheelie bike I've ever ridden in the naked category. This one does power wheelies better, being that it has so much power, but because the MT10 is that shorter wheelbase, it makes it really easy to get up near balance point. I'm not going to test that today on his bike though. The throttling is not that bad. Like, it does have a little bit of snatch to it, but not much. I mean, it's not near as bad as an actual H2. This bike corners a lot better than I thought it would, being how heavy it is. It's definitely something that I would not be mad about probably doing some sort of back road canyons, or, you know, Tail of the Dragon or something like that on. So guys, the snatchy throttle is really only at the higher RPMs, and the first few gears is where I'm noticing it. Everywhere else is buttery smooth. Like, even putting around in first gear, second gear, down low, it's smooth. The throttle is much better than a regular H2. Still a slight bit of snatch to it though. I honestly feel like I'm riding a 200 horsepower scooter. It's so weird. Guys, this bike has thoroughly impressed me on a road bike. I mean, it's such a good road bike. Tons of power, tons of comfort, does corners pretty well. The brakes are really good on this bike. tons of feel in the brakes. Like, I could definitely see me doing a 2-day trip on this, you know, like a weekend trip, no problem. So when you're not in boost and you're not high up in the RPMs, this is actually a very pleasant bike to ride. I was thinking it was just going to be violent like the regular H2, but it's not. It's tame, and until you actually crack the throttle, you don't even know you have 200 horsepower on tap. Stretch bike back there says, "Ooh, 2 quarters." That's just like partial throttle. This thing's so ridiculously fast for a naked bike. I would definitely own one of these. I've got to be honest with you guys, I'm not sold on the looks of these bikes. But I mean, when you're on it, you can't see it, so, you know. I don't know if my mic's picking up all this chirping going on right now, but this does make the same noises that the regular H2 makes. But man, does this bike need an exhaust something fierce. If I had one of these, first thing I'd be doing is going over to Brock's Performance, having them do the old exhaust flash, you know, setting it up right and making it sound good, and add that extra, you know, 40 horsepower to it and get it real rowdy. On a 1 to 10 scale of Savage, 10 being 300 horsepower Ninja H2, I'd give it a 7. I'd give it a 7. It's pretty savage. It's savage, but it's smooth at the same time. It's kind of refined. It's got a little bit of touchy throttle in some places, but not bad at all. I mean, to be honest with you, it's really surprised me on how smooth this bike can be. It's not a 10 like that bike, though. That bike, that 300 wheel horsepower H2 is in your face all the time. Well, guys, final thoughts on the ZH2. Super comfortable, handles pretty well for the size, to be honest with you. It surprised me a lot on that aspect. Good brakes, gobs of power, very easy bike to ride, but you crack the throttle open and it's scary fast. I would own one of these without a doubt. I tell you what sold me was the fuel gauge. Without the fuel gauge, I probably wouldn't buy it, but they put it on there. As always, like and subscribe, leave me a comment down below, let me know what you think of the bike. Till next time, guys.